St. Ignatius Feast Mass on the 31st, as well as the first vows of Eric Lastres. And we started talking at the reception after the first vows, and I asked him, did he know the agrupación? And said, no, I really don't. And I said, would you be interested in knowing more about the agrupación? And he said, yes, absolutely. You know, the only problem I have is transportation. I need somebody to pick me up, somebody to bring me back, because I'm staying at Jesu. So thank you, Efrain, for picking up Father Dirk today, and thank you, Ignacio, for offering to return him to his home this evening. As you heard, Father Dirk is Dutch. He's from the Netherlands, but he has been deployed, in military terms, he's been deployed to the Dominican Republic now for a number of years. And I found out tonight through Father Chumi that he has been active in Jesu Parish for a few months already. So he's been among us and had not had a chance to meet us. So again, I asked Father Dirk to say a few words to us about his vocation, his apostolate, the work that he does, and us to get to know him better and him to get to know us a little better as well. So without further ado, Father Dirk, the microphone is yours.
Well, thank you very much for receiving me here. It is my first time in Miami, and it is Terra Nova. So I'm, if you understand that much Latin, a new territory for me, but in many senses. And I'm glad to share these moments with you. About my vocation. Well, I'm a late vocation. I come from very far, not only geographically, because I was born in Protestantism, in a small community issued from the Anglican Church, which is known as the Apostolic Church, where I grew up in Holland. Until I came in contact with the Catholic Church, and it is really by the grace of God he who has brought me here, and what has been the important in my life had to enter into full communion with the Catholic Church. Several things. The reading of the Fathers of the Church, also the writings of John Henry Newman, and contacts with fervent Catholics, a very active parish in The Hague, where I became to attend a prayer group, a charismatic prayer group, and I learned to pray the Rosary. And so I learned also to love really the Virgin Mary. And then I entered in a process, and finally I was sure that the Lord wanted me to take that step to the full communion with the Catholic Church. And then I entered into a charismatic community, which is the community of Emmanuel, which has its origins in Paris, in France. And after I entered, I felt also a vocation to be a priest. In the parish in The Hague, we had that small chapel. There was really a very strong experience of the presence of our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. That was one of the reasons which touched me. And well, being in the community of Emmanuel, they sent me to Belgium, first to Namur and then to Brussels, where I started the formation of being a priest. And it is in that context that I have known the Society of Jesus. First in Namur and in a little school of philosophy, and then also in Brussels at the Theological Institute of the Jesuits. So for 5 years, and without realizing it really, I was in an Ignatian atmosphere, and I felt also a desire to give myself in religious life. And well, what struck me in the society, well, the figure of Pedro Arrupe was very important for me. So I read an essay on him, on which in a talk which he had given for the Eucharistic Congress in the United States at some occasion, but at that time I didn't know he was general of the Jesuits. That I realized later. But I think it was also the figure of Ignatius. And so I asked one of the Jesuits if he would accompany me, and he proposed me to do an Ignatian retreat, the exercises for during 8 days, and that was really decisive for me, for my vocation, and then everything went very fast. So I did the retreat in April. In June, I went afterwards. I met the Father Provincial, and the usual steps of meeting for Jesuits fathers who had to test me if it was really the Lord. In June, I went to France to meet the novices maestro, and in September I was in the novitiate. So I did my novitiate in France. And so I entered in the Belgian province. And well, I have a formation in law and in Semitic languages. And in the society, what has attracted me also was the love and the commitment for with the poor. So in Belgium, I have worked some years for GRS, visiting detention centers where immigrants are detained as if they were criminals. So I went every week. That is really the apostolate of the Jesuit refugee service in Europe, the visit of the detention centers. But that my other great interest is also the Holy Scripture and the fathers of the Church. And in my vocation, I have always found those two things: the commitments with the poor, but also the studies. And then my provincial sent me to Latin America, to the Dominican Republic in 2003 to make a new experience. It was part also of my magisterio, and so I came in Los Guandules, in the barrio of the Dominican Republic, where I was for 2 years. I arrived, well, as a seminarian. I worked in the parish and also with the Jesuit refugee service in Santo Domingo, especially the problem of the declaration of children of Haitian immigrants in the Dominican Republic. So I made a little report on that. And That was for me another very important thing in my vocation. But after that, I had to go back to Europe for different reasons. But I felt always that desire to return to these parts of the world. And now, since 2014, I'm living permanently in the Dominican Republic. I was ordained deacon in the parish of Domingo Sabio and the Los Guandules barrio, and that was a great experience with so many people, and well, I could speak much more for that, but I will not take you too long. But my present work in the Dominican Republic is now teaching history of ancient and medieval philosophy, Greek and Latin, and also the teaching of the Old Testament. That is one part of my mission. On the other hand, I have various pastoral commitments in the spiritual accompaniment and also, well, in the Mass in English every Sunday in the Santissima Trinidad in Santo Domingo, and various persons who want to see me regularly for spiritual accompaniment. But in my vocation, it is beautiful for me to do both things. I like working a text, for example, of St. Augustine in Latin or a Greek father, but I could not do it all the time. I have also, well, that contact, and that is never easy, but for me it is very rich to have both aspects, the pastoral and the academic and the spiritual. So, and also giving the spiritual exercises, which I have done several times. And well, and then came the idea that I should come for a time here in Miami for 2 months, and I came very gladly to be here in the Jesuit parish. It is a new territory for me to discover, and is for me also an occasion of great spiritual consolation to see what is going on here in the parish, which is in downtown Miami, but the people come from very far. The confessions, the celebrations, the people, and also the little which I have seen here in this part in Belen, and in the different groups and activities which are here. I didn't know there was an ECU, for instance, that really that helps me much, and that gives me consolation. I liked also very much the chapel of Belen, and I think it is only 2 years old, but it is really beautiful, I think, with sobriety, but beautiful and at the same time, which is proportions, and with the paintings and the people gathering there, the celebrations which we have had there with St. Ignatius, and also now with the first vows. It gives me an immense spiritual joy, and I give grace to the Lord for what He has given me to live, and I hope to serve Him all the time that He needs me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Father, for sharing those beautiful words with us. Anyone have any comments, questions for Father Dirk? Jesus? Well, Father Willie did say the other day that he's probably the tallest Jesuit around. So, by all means, thank you very much, Father. Thank you for joining us, and this is always your home. Anytime you want to come back. I see that Father Alfredo has finished his dinner, so I'm going to reintroduce him again. The connection with Father Alfredo is actually a family connection that Jay Velasco and I have with Father Alfredo, as his dad was best friends with Jay Velasco and my father-in-law going back to the 1930s when they were kids. So I've known Father Alfredo before he was father, just knew him as Alfredo, part of the really good friends of the family. One of the really important things about Father Alfredo that I had not shared with you is that he is a Florida Gator. So Father Alfredo graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in accounting, right? There we go. And then decided to enter the seminary to become a priest. So I think I've given you enough, and he will fill in the rest for us. Thank you, Alfredo, for joining us.
So yeah, I was thinking of the connections. The point that that Andres did not make is that I'm younger than the rest of the family, so they were. Yeah, but it's interesting. And actually, Andres, they were friends in the 1920s because they were friends when they were very, very, very little. But just the connections with La Agrupación, I mentioned my dad, my uncle, my confirmation sponsor earlier, and even my name Ignacio. My mom and all her sisters were Sacred Heart girls, and my mom had a spiritual director who was a Jesuit who wanted, if you have a son, tiene que ser Ignacio. And when my brother was born, he was named for my dad, so I got the blessing, and that connection certainly to coming to my parents' connection with Padre Llorente. He married one of my cousins, and he was very, very close to the family always, and I'm sure talking. If we were to start talking and I heard like maiden names of your mothers and grandmothers, we'd make many more connections too. But definitely, for me, just very briefly talk about my own vocation, it was very much connected to what Ignatius says in discernment about feeling peace. It's a long story, many different moments at which the Lord was. It was back before caller ID. You know, caller ID, you get a call, you know who it's coming from. Yeah, I thought if he was calling, he had the wrong number. One of the people who along the way, when I was in college at UF, and I think it might have been when I was, it was actually one of my best friends in college was Andres' cousin. One of the first people, I think it was maybe when I was hating accounting and was thinking of going to grad school and ended up going to grad school and student personnel work at higher ed. But right around that time, Andres said to me, "You should be a priest." And my response was something like, "Are you crazy?" But I still remember sitting it was in the living room of your in-laws' house on south of Sunset. I remember having that conversation. But it was very much a moment I was dean for fraternities and sororities at Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania. And I remember that a young woman I was dating was, you know, it's not really good for relationships to for the girl to know you're thinking about being a priest. But just saying. But she said, "What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for a bolt of lightning?" And I realized I was. And I remember I for the first time, I think I really prayed, not, God, you don't really want me to be a priest, but pulled out the rosary, and it was the Monday or Thursday, when it used to be both days, the joyful mysteries, and the Annunciation was the first mystery, and it was that. The yes, I just couldn't. If Mary could say yes, how could I not? It was just clear. So I sometimes tell guys, it's like, okay, if you want to know, you have to say yes before you know the question. If you're thinking about trying to follow the Lord, you have to say yes before you know the question. But just in terms of my own life, I went to, after that yes, I went to St. Vincent de Paul Regional Seminary, did my seminary work there. That's in Boynton Beach. And I'll talk a little about the seminary in a moment, because I was ordained. I'm going to be a priest, be a parish priest. I'm loving that. Went for 3 years in a parish in Vero Beach. I'm a priest of the Diocese of Palm Beach. And I loved being a parish priest. And then Monsignor Navarro, who is now the rector of St. John Vianney College Seminary, was the rector of St. Vincent de Paul Regional Seminary and in Boynton Beach. And he asked the bishop to let me go, my bishop, to let me go to study in Rome, where I went to the Guardia University and got a degree in theology, a license in theology there. Came back to the seminary faculty, was on the seminary faculty where I taught Father Francisco Permui. And I taught with Dr. Muller's brother-in-law, and who had taught me before, Sixto Garcia, and Tony Lopez, who many of you know. So all of these connections. I was in the faculty for a couple of years. Then I was a pastor of St. Juliana Parish in West Palm Beach for 14 years. I loved that and still kept on teaching adjunct at the seminary. But then back in 2013, I was called back to full-time faculty. I've been Dean of Pastoral Formation, Academic Dean, Vice Rector, Director of Liturgy, and since 2020, Rector. And just for those of you who don't know very much about our seminary, who's ever been to the seminary in Boynton Beach, St. Vincent de Paul in Boynton Beach? Okay, a few of you have. Yeah. Deacon John Motorcore has been there a lot, and somebody I'm very proud of, and so very glad that he's an agrupado, and we'll be working together a lot in his final year of formation this year. But our seminary is unique in the United States, because for various reasons. One, it's bilingual. It's the only theological seminary that's fully bilingual English-Spanish in the U.S. And in terms of, it is bilingual in terms of our life, but it's also bilingual in terms of classes. About 30% of our classes are offered both in English and Spanish to really form guys who can work in both languages and who can serve credibly in both languages, and also be able to serve in other ways as well. And we're also owned, we're the only regional seminary that we're owned by the 7 dioceses of Florida. So all of the dioceses of Florida are committed to our seminary. And we also have the bishops of Atlanta, Savannah, Raleigh, and Charleston on our board of trustees. So it really is regional. And a lot of exciting things are happening there. And really what I love in terms of talking about our seminary is that we really try to, a word we use a lot is integration. And that's a word that I think people our age think about it, and you think about busing in the 1960s. Integration in the church is bringing everything together, tying together. We have 4 areas or dimensions of formation: human, spiritual, intellectual, pastoral. And we really try to make sure that none of those is a silo on its own, that we really are trying to bring it all together to make the best product. Sorry, John, I keep on pointing towards you. But make the best product to help men to say a yes forever, that is going to be faithful, that's going to be joyful, that's going to be fruitful. And guys are going to be able to serve who aren't on like on a bandwagon, I'm doing this for myself, but are really wanting to serve the church and do what the church needs and is calling us to do. And really, I'd encourage you to come and visit us. If you haven't seen us, we have a lot of different activities. If you ever want to take a trip on a Wednesday, well, you have some stuff. And by the way, one of my employees, part-time, whom I'm very sad I'm going to lose, is Father Christian Saenz, who has done a wonderful, wonderful job for us teaching church history and teaching Latin. But Wednesdays at 12:15, our Mass is open to the public. And I've brought, I didn't bring enough for everybody, but I brought some of our seminary magazines. You can pick one up. And if you want more, sure you can try and get us some more. But I think there are like at least 20. But take one and we could, I guess, if you want one, take one and you can, and then get more. But we can certainly get more. But I think it's important to know we have 125 guys total, including, for those who know the Neo-Catechumenal way, including the guys who are the Redentores Mater Seminary, where they do their formation in Hialeah, but come to us for class. We're going to have 125 guys preparing for the priesthood to serve in the Southeast and a few other dioceses, which is a pretty amazing thing. And so I really encourage you to pray for us and pray for these guys and pray that more will say yes. I see a question.
Father Jose, thank you very much for your kind words. In relation to the seminary, it is my understanding that Latin is not a class or a course that it is provided across the board like it used to be many, many years ago. And I also understand that Father Christian Saenz has been teaching Latin at the seminary. Could you be able to say that even though Father Christian will go into Rome for his new assignment, that you will do your very best to continue the Latin
No, we
teaching?
have to. Latin is required in what is called the discipleship stage. Basically, it's supposed to be offered as a requirement in college, seminary, or while the guys are doing philosophy. They're supposed to have had Latin before they start theology. When I was a seminarian, it wasn't required, and so I took Latin for those who might have been in Rome, whom I don't see him anymore, but with a very famous American Capuchin who taught in Rome. But no, it's supposed to be required before starting theology, and that's why we have it as a required course. So we're trying. We're almost there, but we're looking for somebody to take over in January.
Thanks.
It's required. Y pueden en español también, si prefieren.
My experience has always been with the Jesuit. My father was an agrupado. I went to Belen. And one of the common denominators for vocations, at least in Belen, were Marian congregations. In my class, we were 82, and out of 82, there were 10 vocations, which was kind of unusual. Now, out of the 10, it turned out that only 5 stayed as priests. But my question to you is there a common denominator that you see in terms of vocations, in terms of the preponderance of individuals? Do they come from Catholic schools, their background, well, I'll let you comment.
Yeah, and there's research that's done about that. There's a group called CARA who does a survey every year of the newly ordained priests, and they come up with a survey and they say, what are the common experiences? And one very common one is Eucharistic devotion. is spending time in adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. Certainly, Catholic families, being altar servers, strong Catholic families, those are all important ones. Actually, seeing you guys here from college, we've found anecdotally at our place is being involved in campus ministry has been really, really important in terms of guys who might have been Catholic, practicing Catholic all along, and then got involved in Catholic and campus ministry, or were kind of sort of, but had a conversion, reversion experience in campus ministry, or even were not Catholic and entered the church through a campus parish. Certainly Tallahassee, UF have all been very, very important in terms of where our guys have come from. Over historically, the program at Florida State has been, and actually now USF as well. Ave Maria, we've got a number of guys from there, but that it's different for guys who are going to college seminary right out of high school. In our case, everybody who comes to us already has a college degree, so where those moments would have been might be different. Sure. Micrófono. They want you, the microphone's
I'm Ignacio. I'm a UF grad of 1969, agrupados since 1967. My question is this: any skills that you think a newly ordained priest can still be improved upon more than others?
Yeah.
I mean.
We'd look a lot at data.
And do you ever ask
Yes.
a lay person about it?
We
like
ask.
us?
We've done surveys of
Send me a
parishes.
survey next time.
We've done surveys on parishes. The two biggest things, and we've really worked on one of them, and we're trying to work on the other, are preaching and leadership, and those are the big things that we get where there are issues. And preaching, we have the thing called preaching across a curriculum that we try to make sure that all of our classes, there's an opportunity to make some kind of homiletic connection. And we've really, and I think what we hear from people is the guys coming out now, again I'm pointing, but the guys coming out now are really doing a great job in terms of preaching. One of the things that we still want to work on more is as much as we can do, because there's some that needs to be done like out in the field, but as much as we can do to help them to have the tools to lead. Not necessarily they're going to know how to manage every situation. They need good mentoring. And one of the things, we're not going to get into the whole story, but the new program of priestly formation for the United States just came out, effective August 4th. And one of the things that it calls for is more preparation at the beginning, called the propedeutic stage, and also for deacons to spend at least 6 months in a parish in what's called the vocational synthesis stage, back in their diocese. And one of the things that we hope will happen out of that really will be more like one-on-one formation with a pastor who can mentor. Because there's some things in terms of the practicalities they need to learn in place. But again, we look a lot at the very question you asked, and those are two things we found. Microphone. No, that they need it for the video. I think I figured out that's why they need the microphone.
Technology. What is the outlook or the philosophy of priests and permanent deacons? In other words, what is it that is I'm sure you deal with it because the permanent deacons go up there at least once a month. What is if you could give us an overview of how the Archdiocese of Miami views that.
Okay. I can't speak for the Archdiocese because I'm a priest of Palm Beach, but to answer your specific question, maybe context is that we also do formation. We do the academic formation for the permanent deacon candidates for Palm Beach and Miami. So they come up one weekend a month or the whole weekend, and they do classes either on St. John Vianney campus or at our campus or online on Wednesday nights over 4 years. It's 4.5 years. It's an amazing commitment. And I guess the answer I would give is, what is God calling one to? Like, I think I don't want to punt, but I'm going to punt to God. It's like, what's his call? What is the call to? The focus in terms of ministry is supposed to be in diaconate primarily of service. The priest must be of service, but service in leading the community, in forming the community, in the teaching. And all those are aspects of the diaconal ministry, but it's all in the context of diaconia, which literally means to serve, the service. But I think concretely, what is the need in the diocese or the archdiocese, and what's God calling to? I know I punted a bit, but that's my effort.
Father Jose, I believe I can say that if we go back into the past years, and I'm talking about maybe more than 10, many priests have been called to be pastors, and then they face a reality, which is that from the administrative standpoint, they are not that well equipped. My question to you is the seminary taking that factor into account? And is the curriculum calling for a better preparation from the administrative standpoint, or if it is allowing just the priest to continue the spiritual part and hoping on the lay people to do the administrative part?
Okay. And that goes back to the question before in terms of what are the areas where we need to work more. And we've known that area of preparing for administration is key. And again, we have the courses, and a couple of different things. There's a course they take while they're on pastor year, parish administration, that they take with a pretty competent person who teaches it. We have workshops where we have people coming in from Villanova that has a Institute in Church Management that they come in once a year for a workshop for the guys in terms of formation, specific in that area. So there's a lot that we can do, and then at the same, and the reality is guys are becoming pastor much sooner. Traditionally, you would have had 2 or 3 parishes before taking over a parish. I got to do it the last time, John. John can get ordained next spring and become a pastor in 2 or 3 years, and it's happened. It's happened in your archdiocese. So we're trying to offer as much as we can, and at the same time being honest with the bishops and saying, you need to do more. And part of what we offer in terms of leadership, which is different than administration, is, you touched on that point, I'm not going to do anything, the laity just take care of everything, but how do I collaborate with? How do we work together? Can I share without being insecure? And in my insecurity, I end up, either I give everything up, or soy el manda más, who has to say what everybody does. And when I can really trust, going back to trust, when I talked to the homily, when I can trust and I know what I can do, I can know when I can ask for help, and when I need to say, okay, I've listened to you, but I'm capable of making a decision that may be different than what you advised me to do. But it takes knowledge, it takes trust in God, it takes mano izquierda. It takes the ability to manage the situation.
Well, the good thing for John is that he has a good team in ACU to back him up.
Great to meet you, Father Trudy.
I guess, where's Andres?
Un placer.
Thank you, Father Alfredo.